What's up? The more I stay away, the more I say, you know what? I got to go ahead and get back. Then I come back, working, it's gonna be this, it's gonna be that. Basically, it's all the same thing. Getting out of the trap. With the trap boards, and everybody saying what they say about what they into, and how to get rid of crevice and gravity of the system. You got your overlords, basically those giving instruction, those tuning, or trying to be attuned to the healing. You don't feel it, you take responsibility of folks picking your ass back up as far as you being the woman or the man of this particular planet, the whole planet. My name is Jack, and then from those, who basically was part of the movement in music. Music was the healing force for those who were sick. Music was the one that gravitated and healed those who had no reason to be, those who were lost, those who basically were lost. That's just way to put it. And as I begin to speak, the other entities come and basically want to be represented. Now, by that I mean my first, how can I say first? One of my fears, and I speak about, when I say Jay-Z. And when I speak about Jay-Z, I speak about Jay-Z like Jay-Z is a person, personification of a soul who basically started off on a journey and had some counselors with them. And as the journey changed, as that fork in the road came, called Shuba, and they took one side of that road and they erred. And in that error, they become success in material and not in the spiritual. And the other side, that road, it was taken by some who no longer here. You see, they're not here in the same flesh, but they're still here. And what's up, yo? The more I step what's up, yo? The more I stay away, the more I say, you know what? I got to go ahead and get that. And then I come back and I say, well, it's going to be this, it's going to be that. But basically, it's all the same thing, getting out of the trap. Let the trap lords and everybody saying what they saying about what they into and how they get maybe crevice and gravity of the system. Then you got your overlords, basically those giving instructions, those who attuned or trying to be attuned with Elohim, And then Elohim is going to take responsibility of being the host, picking your ass back up as far as you being the woman or the woman of this particular planet, the whole planet. You know, and you've seen that was done by one name, which was Jen. And then from those
I actually thought it was me. And by the way, it's okay. I actually thought it was me. And by the way, it's okay. I actually thought it was me. And by the way, it's okay. And actually, I thought it was me. And by the way, it's okay. So now, this is what we do. Since I got higher prices than the next, I give my salute. I go my ways. And this right here, this is the introduction to the next skit, what it is. It's already there. Overload for that which got. But what I'm saying, distribution, activation of distributions, activation of what? Getting your attention. Activation of the distribution of the 12 springs that came through. People didn't know before. I tell it right now. You already know. We're going to see as we go along. But this here, this footage here, this is my memory. You know, when they say intellectual properties, this here will trigger that which is. From that, where I was going. It's like you get booted out. Don't worry about that right now. Figure out what you got to do from where you at. Whatever. If you don't, that's the simple. Keep it that way. Boom. That's it. You can say simple, but you still got to be a trendsetter. You got to be a trendsetter. And, you know, the motherland, just that name alone, you know, you have that wonderful qualities, put things together, you know, but that quality and substance of other things, everybody got their own way to get it done, you know, things that, you know, prepare them. That's what keeps you going. Like the seesaw, that's the best way I can put it. You know, so be right, be what you're supposed to be. It's gonna be right that like that. Because the view in the competition is not para L. Par, red, L. None of that. None of that. That's what I can tell you. None of that. People gonna hop on it just like that. When they do it like that, eventually on the author it becomes a fact. It's a fact, you know, I can go ahead and build that factory, that city, that state, that new theory of what it be from Mare of being Theos. See, that dignity, deity at that. But it's all right. Because like I said, this right here is a treasure. Because once I get to where I'm getting, it's all about the service. 4 ways, and all of that. A little drama to it. Big shout out to the Drama Kings. I heard y'all getting ready to get back on the weed shit. Yeah, it's like, I get a call, something happened. I get a call, something happened. Another could, but but at least is respect is there. This time and speed and urgency, the things that's needed by those of this agenda of clarity, And I give a big shout out to the whole Clara and that whole everything, right? And then and Clarence, you see. So it gets to, now you get a little piece. You don't get it all. You don't get a sentence. You get the clue. So when you clueless, right, you either don't need it right now, because you ain't dealing with that. Certain things, you got to make room for the next. But big shout out to the big lines, big lines coming around. Yeah. It be like that. But let's see what we got on here. I make it or break it. I know what I got is right. I amaze myself. You heard about that joke, right? I know you heard about that joke, right? Yeah, I put it out there. Yo, I wish my cousin was here. I got a cousin, Yeah, he cool. Hey, everybody do their things. Everybody do what they do. We got a cousin. Let's see if that'll pop up.
C is the next letter of the English alphabet that we will now go into.
Oh, I like this one.
As when one speaks, they would say, see you around. By saying, see you around, one would go in the position of the cipher or the circle. They would become the squires, and they would be able to kill those who insisted to be first or fierce. They would be able to take the place of the original, who was the woman. As the laws of man-child was written to overcome the position of the woman. So just by saying C, U, which is A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, which is 2 and 1, or 21. 21 has a lot to do with the 3 sevens. The 3 sevens is the 3 preferred, as they call perfection. See you around. The C, which is the 3. The U, is the 21. 3 sevens or preferred 21s. The cipher, which is the complete 360 degrees of the circle, the square, and the killings. So dealing with C is the U, the W as said, and the W as seen is the circle. To use is the circle. Back again to see you around. Now with this C, we're going to use that not only as the circle, but we're going to use it as the continent. And from the continent, we won't emphasize the self from the body, going back to Pangea. We will introduce the self as the energy within the body. And by doing that, you'll be able to know that you're trapped in the body. You're trapped in the earth. You're trapped in a city. You're trapped in a state. You're trapped in a country. You're trapped in the large buildings that is also a cave. So when we say sea and we say building, we say caves. The material for the construction of a building is from the caves, the rocks, formulated into concrete blocks or cylinder blocks. The steel, which is the mineral, the foundation of placement, the mortar, the clay, the cable for the electricity. All of this is you still living inside a cage. When you say house, you're in a cage or close to a bird's nest. As the bird was giving the instinct to build a bird house, and a monkey was given the insects to go into a cave, those humans created in the image of their maker, which is called angels or Elohim or Anunnaki, those who were given and put in with the sacrifice of one of theirs was given their intellect to create and were considered to be caliphate or left behind to rule. The first rulership was those of what they call pharaoh or pharaohs. And this is where you get the name for Hitler. He was considered to be a pharaoh. And this, in his day and time, when eugenics was a part, eugenics is also the stem cells of what we call the DNA. They were trying to create a species from the genes that was recessive and make the recessive genes dominant. And with that, there was a lot of experimenting, there was a lot of killing, there was a lot of murder, and only to try to undo the many mistakes that had happened prior to creation. It took a while for the angels, the host, to make humans supreme. That the time that they tried to elevate and make humans faster than their evolutionary process. They tried to speed up the evolutionary process. There was one way. So you had the same people through their DNA trying to speed up and try to use those who they were supposed to help. They tried to use those to go against nature. Then you had the children of the Elohim, as it is said that they came and they took those who they were pleased with, or those who were beautiful. But by telling that story 6,000 years after the fact and not putting in place that those who came here were the same ones who helped in the creation of those species, and that by placing themselves in creation, they would be able to leave and continue their travel in the multi-galaxies, and they would have their presence here. So it wasn't as rape. It was what they insisted to do because they were in charge. So people want you to be upset about something that you had no control over, something that helped you in time, and they want you to be emotional. They want to stir up your emotions so you can make the false motion of doing things that do not matter. People want you to be on their side. It's like when they made the wrong decision of who's who on the planet Earth and tried to fool the people by way of tradition and by way of, this is my son, when it says, call no man your father. So one man didn't have an individual son, but only through tradition. This was made to believe that it was true. And those who accepted it were those who also accepted the many things of compliance that kept you in captivity. Those who accept the fact of the barter system and charge people many-dollar bills for the information that did not give them salvation, and it did not give them deliverance from their captors. All it did was keep them blindly going back and forth to their captors, working for their captors, and bringing the money or the tickets that was given to them to those who had already had an agreement, known or unknown, with the political system. This agreement was called religion. This agreement was called spiritualism. This agreement was called church, mosque. This religion spread off from the college or college as fraternities, sororities. Fraternity was the name for brotherhood. The word brother was the shortened version of brothel. The word sister was an inadequate word, an unfinished word, because they left out and deleted the A to assist. The word sister was supposed to be assist. This assistment was for those not of a race, but was formatted in tribes. The tribe was the short of three, or tribe, T-R-I, and the ba was the spirit. It was the two plus to make one, the one to make two. The joining the wa, the six. The six is now said to be sex. The sex, S-E-X, is S-I-X. The S-I-X was the W-A, which was the wa, and the wa was the vowel. The vowel of the wa was the 6 and ended up to be the 9 in the numbers of English. So getting back to the C, U, the letter C, the letter U, and put around would be the cipher. Those who took the position of being the origin of this 6,000 years. Now there is some who say that those created in the image of God, and then those say the image of God was a spirit. The spirit has no image. The spirit is a continuation of the same. It's not an image. An image is those who were formed as a body, as a being. A being is one who can take on the spirit and the soul. So there's other things to be said as we introduce you to the true ABCs of righteousness, of being right and being just. to being honorable, and to be loyal. And those who set off 50 years ago and never made change when change was inevitable. Those who went back to their old teachings when progress and the answers was here, multiplying and diversifying and adding on to a clear reality, reinforcing the road of safety and the art and skill of negotiation with others who were in tribal formation. Those who were in the political system are not those who are in control. Those are the ones who is said to be in control. Those who are in control are from a existence that is not calculated in your writings, nor the tabs or the books of the ancients. Because in those times, it was just as confused, brought together the confusion of what was going on, even though we were right looking at them. So as we look at you, as our children, as you have taken titles from the words that you have grafted from your gauges, from your geometry, from the circle and the square, from your writers who have authored words to stimulate vibrations, to bring about reactions and moods and commands. These things we say with the infinite flow to manifest the truth, and the closest truth that you will get it will be the pristine, unadulterated truth from those who have came down, not duplicated in birth and put in an environment of hate, environment of revenge, environment of fighting with those who have came out in the dunya and painstakingly worked to make change. Those who went back and shed their light and became pillars of strength in the US of A to make changes in the White House, in the systems of justice, the Congress, to make changes in the 12 cabinets in the White House, to make changes in the 9 Supreme Court judges, to spill over now to the assemblymen and women who also bear witness to the truth of those who came into a close encounter of a third time and got a preview of an example of a lifestyle that could be utilized in the world. And that same lifestyle was not perfected. So it would take time to tweet out the mistakes from a state street, the position of a state in the form of a religion that was passed on by those of the Saud family and given charters to those who came to America, such as Sheikh Dawood, who cleaned it up the best way he could, the plot that was to come to a people that were chosen to become the new overseers and for their DNA to wake up, and was given to a man who had a certain heart to make it happen, put him on Hart Street in the light or the wick of the bush as to a burning bush of Moses, who was the lawgiver, and Muhammad, who was the lawgiver, to entwine him with the timeline of those in this creation today as a reference. So many things was done because of the economic of this man and his family, while others were more oppressed. They were considered to be the elite as far as economics. So they had resources. So upon this resource that came from State Street, that came from determination and the drive to help others, not knowing that the misinformation was truly not where those who were coming back as Ethereans, those who were here as Ethereans, were also working on the hearts of those who were in authority to make manifest. Now, it was many people who would not change. So opposite attracts. And those people that were brought around and they had an attitude, they continued. They would not be emulsified. They would not be purified. They were crystallized with the thought, and they held on to the things that did not matter. They would not go for the change. So they say the change were not in them, but were in their children. But being around their children and the things that they did through the formative years of them learning, time would not allow for them to make change. So they did things that were not unnatural, but things that were by law were making rapid change by those who had left, that came in as a revolving door and left, that came in and seen the energies, the negative energies in what we call the hospital. Now, it may be seen to those that I'm rambling off, and it's fine because it's not for you. But those who have must change, and those who do not have must learn. And the first thing, you must go back to the ABCs. And the first thing is appreciation. So it's not that we don't appreciate those who did not change and did not become mukosina, did not purify themselves, and with the knowledge that they had, it was told to them that they will be judged by the knowledge that they had at that time. And they have taken an oath, and I now say, return back to your oath that you have taken. You said you believe in the law and the scriptures because they were written, they were there. It was the bloodline and the timeline of this right here. And I believe in the law and the scriptures and his angels. Said you believed in angels and his apostles, those at the A post, those who were Navi. You said you believed in that. So they said, well, belief is not true. So if you say B, take the first letter, believe, the word believe, and take the first letter, and let's go for the first letter. Let me break it down to you so you can see. The B is the theta, the stroke coming down, which is the opening for what we call coming into this and leaving out of this dimension by way of what we call the spinal column. And with the spinal column in the theta, you have what we call the energy grids, called the chakras. So let's break it down. But just to break that down right there, and the B is the theta, and it's the W. The W is the 3. You take the double of the U's, put them together, you have the cipher. So the B on the lower case look like a P. Okay, so you have the B, and then you have Eli in the word believe. E-L-I, Eli, B, Eli. And then you have E-V-E for evolution, to evolve. Believe with action and works, and faith. Faith for tact. So these things we say with an infinite flow to manifest the truth and let the light grow. As we were born twice to the world, could truly understand the trials and tribulation of the original men, the original from, the original you, which is energy, root, which is energy, man, men, from. So those that still made changes but did not elevate, changed the name to a different timeline, but did not change their heart. And that's dealing with the Ma'at. Didn't use the principles of Ma'at when they got back to Ma'at. Didn't use the principles of Islam when they were living Islam. When they even taught there was a difference between being Muslim and Muslim. And those who considered themselves black, that was still a political term, was be lacking. not having. There's a political term in white was we hit, we hate. We hit, we hate. Who it is many ways to break down the black and white on a political platform coming from the same line of infinity split and used as a politics, policy, political terminology. So those of you who were only used and allowed to be used as a instrument of thou shalt not be like you. And those whose intentions were misconstrued by those claiming that you had a father on earth when father was a way of spookism, and it says by those who know Yeshua in this life and those who know Jesus in this life. It says, thou shalt not call no man thy father from the laws of Moses. And it says, not one of these laws will ever be changed. Because those with this, like get, nut, those were just words to give to you in your human existence, in your human mind, because the mind was not able to compute that which it did not have the ability to compute. The letter D, A, B, C, D. The letter D is for Derek. D, E, R, E, K. Derek. D, E, R, R, I, C, K. Derek. D, H, E, R, K. Derek is what we call Hebrew word, and that is short for one who crossed over, attributed to Abraham, which is said to be the father or the hub of those chosen by what is called the angelic realm, passed on to be the Igigi, those who were rulers of the sky, or what they would call Enlil. And those who were ruler of the earth was called Enki. Ki and Enki was the name of the earth. The earth is a living organism. Now the word Derek in this case is my name, my title, my attribute that I use to help bring you and activate your DNA at the same time, give you a roadmap in your consciousness. You have the conscious and you have the subconscious. The subconscious is ruled by those of the heavenly host. These procedures are not given to you in your programming called schools, both public and private. Some of these teachings were written, but not given to you in actuality. These writings were considered to be sayings of those, and they, at the time, those who were in control were said to be men. So they say sayings of men, or hadith. When one tries to use the quantum theory of thought and transfers your thinking to a million years when you have no conception of a million years. Your body was not created to last as what they would consider to be a million years or 1,000 years. It was said that you would be here for 120 years. And this saying is the manifestation of the trickery that's around you. They have taken time out, added time in. So time is not the most important thing for you to look for when you're trying to make clearance in your deliverance from the things that you see. You have to go to the things that you see and say, what is their operating methods? What is their MO, method of operation? And when you say operation, you're saying operation, you're saying, like, what makes them work? So we have something for them to take you into an unnatural reality. We have something that was put in called laws. LAW. Now, LAW was put in by those who were kings. So if you don't know that the name king is M-A-L or Mal, you wouldn't understand that those who had the position of Mal or kings at the time of the writings of the rules, if you didn't know R-E in rule and rules represented the energy, and the L-E and L-A represents not. So energy not, rule. R-E-A-L, R-E, energy, source, real. So these explanations that are given to you would not exist if you change your language or your language. And that's what happened. They have you running around like tiddlywinks. If you do not know what tiddlywinks are, ask your parents. But tiddlywinks was a game by taking a coin, and placing it down and flipping it over by putting pressure on it with another coin. And what that does is they try to flip it so it would go into a receptacle like a bowl or a cup, and that was tiddlywinks. So through the knowledge of truth, one has been able to use it in a way with those who were negative. When we say negative, we say a negative and a positive. Because when we say negative, that is the building blocks of what positive is. I don't want to get you lost. But at the same time, what's going on, the clearance, the derrick, the strength. The word derrick, they have machines called derrick, which are used in agricultural, building, digging. Derrick. It's a machine. Derrick is also the way. The way. It's a, when we say Hebrew word, it means the way. So if they take that name Derrick out of the equation and one, by way of your name, you are called to engage in the situation that we live in. The situation that we're living in now, it depends on what point of view that you're on. And that was given to you by the division of life, and they say black or white. If you black or you white. Now, the funny thing about white made changes after 1960. Before 1960, those from the what they call West Indies were considered to be white. If they wasn't so black that they, well, actually, even if they was black, when they birth certificate, it depends on who was controlling. Because the Spaniards had invaded Central America, and they took all that was around. That's how they got the stronghold, by invading Central America. It was a conquest. So they conquered the land. And after they conquered the land, then the other Europeans, from what we call now, in the biblical terms, that you can relate to, as the tribes of Canaan. Now, those things were from the tribes of Canaan, but you also have to realize that the origin of Canaan and the offsprings of human were melanated. And by that is they were melanated as a supreme being and overseers. So those who came after, these people either left or some of them actually got sick and got what we call the disease of leprosy. Leprosy is described as leproma. The color, milky white, was considered to be Lynette, the color Lynette. Now, this information is very useful because when one projects you to go back in your mind and you leave the now, you will put more emphasis on a virtual reality than the reality that exists. The reality that exists is that there is the truth, and from 54 years of anyone's teaching, there's been many changes by those who had good intentions. So those, when you look at representation in the Congress, what you have is accumulation of those who have a concern. They send a representative to Congress. Each state has joined the union and made it one state of mind, but it's 50 different concerns. Each state is able to run their state similar to a country, but has the federal government to oversee it. Now, this information should not be new to you. It should not be something that you put to the side. It's something that you need to live, because this is the rules of engagement. And when you have the rules of engaging in a system that uses laws and gives you the opportunity to have someone represent you in the legislation, which is one third of what's going on, is the legislation. And by the legislation and the laws is the balancement of what is called a triad. Now, many of you have heard the name triad, but was given to you on a level of whoever constructed that triad, used for whatever mission that they had. After 50 years, something gets stagnated. Remember this, knowledge is infinite. Someone can continue to teach you about what happened years ago, call it facts from what they have did the research, return to see the which is now stated as misinformed information that was put out, buried, so those who would uncover it would feel a rush, like they have something. If you look at those who speak about saving your soul, and you look how they get emotional with it, that is dealing with the spiritual. A spiritual is involved with emotions, the uncertainty of who you are, your whereabouts, things of that nature. These things were not for us to be concerned with. Our concern is always to be with the now, the present. The present and the now is a present. The present is a present. It's a gift. The gift of Hayat. So once the message and the information and the translation of something was given, it was given to you as a reference point to refer you back to what you need to do in the now. But those who didn't dabble and they took their time and they really didn't understand not the certainty. They didn't understand that there was no time to waste. They didn't understand about time management. And they didn't understand that every time they sat in front of someone, they were considered to be as a reaper. And in that reaping, they disclosed themselves because they spoke of falsehood. They didn't teach about salvation. Salvation is with the engagement of the rules that keep you free. It is a duty to be involved in the system that you live in. If you're not involved in the laws by changing them if you don't like them, or representing them and defending them if you do like them, then you're considered to be outside the law. Now, many brothers have said that, but at the same time, with their DNA coding, with their habits, with their environments, with their workload, And this is from a neutral point, a neutral stand. I don't speak in reference to black because black is a political invention. It's words that was grafted to separate and have division. Even when you say Africa or Africa, land of separation. When you say Pangea, where the land separated, all these and all this is basically division. When you say I was born in this country, or this country's better than that country, that's individuality, in dividing, and that's human. That's okay. But that's not the job of those who were sent here and got touched. Those are the who encountered an awakening of their DNA. Those who are in tune with the host of the planet. I am the host of the planet, not going by a name 10,000 years ago, as I do have that name also, but something that must be said right now with Derek as the way in Hebrew, giving gratitude and appreciation and barakat to those who have stood forth and say, guess what? I'm Hebrew. I'm a part of Hebrew. I'm a part of Abraham. Those who say, I want to get out of this political game you're playing, and I have a different mindset, and I want to speak Hebrew but can't, so we created Yiddish. And yes, they may not say that they come from an establishment where they do have leprosy. So they changed the name to medical terms, midi, in between. Word midi means in between. So that when you say medical, you're saying in between something. And that's in between those who are well and those who are not well. And when they were well, at one time they were separated with colonies of people who were not well. And when they were well, the high priest would say, you're well, or welcome, come on back over. And when they couldn't, they was refrained and they were quarantined. This is why the first law of any city is safety. And if one is not well and they had a disease that could spread, they would sanction them and quarantine them. And this is what we have to do. We have to quarantine those in our mind with self-discipline. And we have to get them out of our daily life and continue to engage in a system with appreciation and using barakat for the continuation of this Constitution on the federal that helps balance the states, every state. And each state must realize now that the state of something is the wish and the dream of the heavenly hosts coming back. which they term as the church because of the lack of information in their translation of all that they could find and uncover in archaeology and their experiments in sociology and behavior and science. So they say that the state, which was the hope of the many beautiful things to come, would not mix with the church. Church and state would not mix because the church was at that time was inadequate of answering what was needed for the continuation to be used as a medium for the state, for the hope. So now we're talking about state, 50 states in the United States, and then we're talking about the federal government. Then we're talking about the executive branch and the 12 cabinets. And then we're talking about the congressman. And then we're talking about the 9 Supreme Court justice. And we're using that triad, that three. And as we have done, and as we continue to appreciate, which is A, Barakat, which is B, and C for continuing, the D, the way of the divine intervention that is now being taught so that the church would be able to uplift themselves and take out that which is not true, because in the last days of time, even their doctrine tells them that it will be not by what they say, but it will be in spirit and in truth. And in spirit is led and has come into the divine to explain the unexplained and to pardon those whose intentions was good, but did not have the answers to do that which was real. They did things to rule.